I'm Tristan Taylor. I'm a tournament bream angler and I'm from Brisbane. In 2019 I fished all of the ABT bream rounds all over Australia, Victoria, WA, a couple in New South Wales and 2 in Queensland, and was lucky enough to take out the Angler of the Year title and also win the grand final. I got into tournament fishing about 12 years ago. I was living on the Gold Coast doing university and saw a couple of AFC videos, people catching bream in the canals. I thought that looks pretty fun, let's get into that. And sure enough, went out there, a couple of top water lures, a couple of plastics, and loved it. Really great sport to get into. And the more you do it, the more you learn, and really you can take those skills anywhere in Australia and the world and catch fish. If you're new to lure fishing, one of the easiest techniques you can use is a hard body lure. So I'm using an Atomic Crank 38 deep diving hard body here. The reason it's so easy is you don't have to actually add too much action to it. It's got the bib of the lure here, which will make it swim really well. And you can do a simple cast and wind retrieve, and usually you'll get fish on that. So I'll show you kind of how that works. We're just fishing a rock wall here, mainly for bream or mangrove jack, anything that might be sitting around some rocks. So I usually just cast in as far as I can and close to the rocks, and then just a slow, steady wind back. Now I'm using a 2500 size reel here. It's a 10-pound braid and then just an 8-pound leader. So nothing too tricky about it, just winding that straight in. And that's just bouncing along on the rocks. As it gets a little bit deeper, I can start to feel the lure working in the water there. And we just keep doing that until you cross paths with where the fish are. So it's dead simple. You can catch good flathead on that, bass, even whiting sometimes will come up and take a hard body lure. Having done all of the 2019 ABT bream circuit this year, we had to fish for both yellowfin and black bream. And the Atomic Crank, that basically is a universal lure. You'll catch both black and yellowfin on that one. But there is some pretty subtle differences that you need to be aware of. The yellowfin bream, I generally prefer just a straight retrieve, slow wind, don't really put any pauses into it, and generally don't put any jerks or any other motion into the lure. When you're down south fishing for the black bream, they really love a little pause, and you've got to slow it right down. So you can't really go slow enough for the black bream. If you're just cranking that handle just over very slowly, that's kind of the speed you want to be doing. When it comes to colour, there's no hard and fast rules, and anglers can make up their own mind what works for them. From my point of view, what works for me is a natural or a neutral kind of colour like this is really good in clear water or on a sunny day. Anywhere where there's a lot of water clarity, I generally go for the natural colours. Now, if I'm fishing somewhere that's really dirty and there's not a lot of visibility in the water, I generally tend to go for something a little bit more of a matte finish. Now, the idea behind this, in my mind, is that solid shape will actually show up against that dirty water, so a fish will actually just see the silhouette of it, and it tends to work pretty well in muddy water in my hands. But everyone is different, so I mean, you choose your own weapon there. Also, depending on the type of fish you're chasing, so I'm mainly chasing bream, you can get a reaction bite, which is something that happens when the fish sees this go past them, and that's out of just a natural response. I'll go and target that thing swimming past them. They're not so much trying to eat it as a food source necessarily. Something really bright and shiny like that I find often works really well as a reaction kind of a bite. So that's something that you can play around with. The other one that tends to work pretty well if you want something in between a natural and more of a matte solid finish, the new Prawn Tiger colour in the Atomic range. So that's a really nice kind of natural side, but if you're holding it up to the light, it's got a pretty good silhouette, so you could use that in both clear and dirty water. Another technique you can use with the Atomic Hards Crank 38, if the slow roll's not working, is you can apply a little bit of a jerky pattern to it. So I'll show you how that one works. Now, this is particularly good if you're fishing for black bream. They generally do like a little bit of a pause and a little bit more of a jerk, or if the fish are being really tentative, or they're sitting in structure and they're not chasing the bait out a long way. So you want to keep it right in their face the whole time. So I've cast out. I usually just wind it about 5 or 6 handles there, just to get it down to a running depth. And then I'll just do 2 quick little stabs of the rod tip. Just slowly wind up the slack, and then 2 quick little jabs again. So basically what you're doing is you're just making that dart just in one spot, so you're not dragging it too far past the structure that you're fishing. And hopefully then if the fish are sitting in that structure and they don't want to move too far from it, you're giving it the best chance of being in their face and getting a reaction out of them.